Notes on US politics. Notes are not designed to be a complete explanation. They're much more of an observation. And one of the things that's completely puzzled people looking from the outside, trying to understand Donald Trump, and trying to understand why he has such a resonance with a section of the United States electorate, and why some of his vote appears to be robust when he demonstrates a deliberate lack of social graces. He can be coarse and rough street language, unpredictable outbursts, an attitude of grievance not normally associated with the higher levels of American political society, the use of Twitter shout-outs in an unpredictable way, the populist and nativist blame policies, the racism, misogyny, disloyalty, even to the highest level when you look at the turnover in his immediate group, and the bullying. On top of that, disrespecting the law, disrespecting the FBI and the Constitution, except when it comes to guns. So why is it possible that some people in the United States think that this might work out? We have seen episodes of people trying to put a constructive rationale on the Trump behavior, that this is a disruptor and it facilitates change, whether it's North Korea or other relationships. And even when many of these things are incomplete, what is the explanation of his role? So the first explanation was by Edward Luce in the Financial Times about 2 weeks ago. And he said that Trump is performing the functions of a clown in the circus. The clown comes out when everything has to be changed in the background, distracts all the children, has explosions, hurrahs, and is actually quite scary in a lot of instances, is outrageous, but in the background, other people are making changes, taming the lions, moving the material around. And Edward Luce went through a list of all the secretaries of state, what they were doing in environment, what they were doing in education, what was happening in international, and that part of the theory was that they were quite happy to pursue what would otherwise have been headline news stories in the changes that they were making to funding and to policy, if it wasn't for the fact that all the attention was being taken away by the clown. So the clown, or the idea of the clown as a deliberate role in politics, is one that's being advanced. The second one is the wrestler. Ed Balls has been doing a tour of the United States, and in one of the episodes, he became a wrestler. And he reminded everyone that Trump used to take part in the Worldwide Wrestling Show. He would appear in the ring, shouting out at the goodies and the baddies. And Ed Balls described how in the success of Worldwide Wrestling is not just the show and the physique and everything, but the role playing. And you can see here, I don't know why the Scots-Irishman with a kilt has ended up in the middle, and whether he's the good guy or the bad guy. You know that the guy on the left with the white socks is definitely going to win, and that the guy with the black hat in the background is probably untrustworthy. B.A. Barabbas from the A-Team sometimes wins, sometimes doesn't. That's Hulk Hogan in the background. And the other guy seems to be representative of Indian, Mexican groups. This kind of simple narrative where you could translate this, as Ed Balls tried to, into him being Britain, somebody else being Putin. This is the show that some people like, and it's all the attention that they really pay to politics. Those of us who follow politics intensely are an absolutely minuscule minority. For the rest, politics is roughly in the background the way that some people watch EastEnders. My preference, however, is that the narrative that he is using is the hillbilly narrative. And this is very, very strong in the United States and in its culture. So here we have the Beverly Hillbillies Or, if you like, you can have the Dukes of Hazzard. But you can find this hillbilly story through tons of films and television series. And the main features of it are that Paul, the oldest guy, is slightly disgruntled and mad. He sits on the porch with his gun cocked and loaded, shouting at the moon. But behind it, there is some great grievance. The family was cheated out of their oil field. There is something rotten. The sheriff is always crooked. The mayor and others are always on the take. And it's the family, usually the bright sons and daughters, who have to try and sort it out. And that is a repeated narrative throughout American films, American history. It appeals to a huge number of people. But the point is, in these films, it always works out in the end. And the guy who is doing the shouting or sitting on the porch with the gun, howling at the moon, is justified. And that is one of my theories about why a section of the American electorate seems prepared to give Trump quite a lot of rope in the hope that it will all work out. And I think we could see that sitting on the porch with a gun cocked, shouting at North Korea, while his Secretary of State and others were taking part in discussions, accusing Hillary of being crooked, attacking the FBI as the crooked sheriff. These are common narratives in American culture, and they appeal to a whole set of people because in the films and in the narratives, it usually works out okay. Unfortunately, in real life, that isn't always the case. So in Britain, we've been horrified by watching this. My goodness, our whole world has been turned upside down from the sedate Barack Obama, sophisticated, urbane academic. But I've always thought that this was slightly ridiculous because suddenly in the American Constitution, they've got somebody at the top roaring and shouting and doing everything in 140 characters. And here we are sitting in Britain being critical. But what right have we got to be critical? There he is with the gun. So there he is, the old man sits on the porch, nursing injustice, crooked sheriff, and it all works out in the end. However, in Britain, we have our own version of this, and it's called Prime Minister's Question Time. And when I worked for Neil Kinnock in the 1980s, three of the most famous people in the United States were Margaret Thatcher, Neil Kinnock, and Betty Boothroyd, the Speaker, because they provided showtime sound bites every other night on American TV on any go-to subject in the world. The American television loved it. And there was this roaring bear pit with people shouting at one another, this woman standing up being howled down, and vice versa. Now, we think that that's an important part of our Constitution, and we think nothing of it. The Americans were staggered when Parliament was televised. It completely upturned their sedate images of the Queen and Churchill, and it provided them with as much entertainment as Donald Trump now provides us. Prime Minister's Questions used to be twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was never off the television. And afterwards, people like Betty Boothroyd say that wherever they travel, they are recognised across the world. So in constitutional structures, from time to time, you do have this bear pit attitude, and we're going through a difficult time. I don't have absolute solutions for it all, but I just think that we sometimes have to be a bit cautious when we point across the water and see that the role of the clown or the madman or the old guy with the gun howling at the moon is somehow alien. Every political system tries to have it in some way. Somebody plays the clown, somebody's a catalyst. What is shocking at the moment is that it happens to be in the White House. These are simply my notes and thoughts on it when I try and help people overcome their angst about what's happening in America. Thank you.